There truly was no greater way to end 2019 than the signing of the federal recognition of the Little Shell tribe of Chippewa Indians.
Well, I think it's really great that we finally made it after 100 and some years.
I'm still digesting it. We've worked so hard on this for so long.
It is so inspiring to me because I've been working with the Little Shell for a few years now.
You know, our people have been fighting for this for a long time, and I'm just really excited that it's finally here. It's something I never thought I would see.
And there's no better way to start off 2020 than celebrating the victorious end of a 157-year-old fight.
I didn't think I would live long enough to see it. I really didn't.
I feel it is about time. We've waited quite a while. I personally waited about 60, 70 years.
Even though it was signed off on December the 20th of 2019, it still really hasn't sunk in. I know it is, but it's hard to believe that we are federally recognized.
Welcome to this historic event, the federal recognition of the Little Shell tribe. My name is Kevin Buckles, and I will be your master of ceremonies this evening. Yes, let's give a round of applause to the Little Shell tribe.
Thank you, Grandfather, for allowing us to walk in this beautiful day beside you today, Grandfather. Grandfather, I pray for all my relations, the two-legged, the four-legged, the swimmers and the crawlers and the flyers. I want to give a special prayer to my Mother Earth here. I ask her for her forgiveness for the scars we put upon her every day. But I ask and I thank her for the life she gives us every day. Grandfather, watch over us as we celebrate this good time, this blessing in our life here today. Keep us healthy and happy and safe and in a good way. Look us up and down and have pity on us today, Grandfather. Let us get by in life with what we need. I ask you, Grandfather, and you, Mother Earth, to bless our old ones and our young ones with every step that they take upon you. Grandfather, let the young ones be young, run around and have fun and be children. Let our old ones live to be old and teach us the way, the native, the Indian way, so we can pass it on to our young ones. Grandfather, we thank you for all that you give us. Thank you for all that you take from us. We thank you for the blessings that you give us every day, Grandfather. We love you, Grandfather. And we miss all our relations that are up in the heavens with you. Thank you for this day. Well, appreciate it. Tanana.
In some way, every people ask and consider fundamental questions of identity, such as who are we and where do we come from?
The ancestral group of the Little Shell tribe, i.e. the historic Nehiya plot, comprised of the Cree, Assiniboine, Chippewa, and Métis, have been allied since the 1650s. The Little Shell tribe emerged out of these indigenous bands of natives that lived on the northern Great Plains before the nation-states of America and Canada. The Little Shell have continuously inhabited Montana since the 1790s. Many European and Canadian men married into the tribe. Descendants of those first and subsequent marriages have proudly maintained their foundational identity. With the Treaty of Old Crossing, the U.S. promised support and a yearly annuity in exchange for land, but the U.S. government failed to follow through on its agreements. Many men, women, and children died of cold and starvation. Attempts were made by the government to secure the consent of the Little Shell for their removal to some other reservation. The Indian Claims Commission offered them 10 cents an acre for roughly 10 million acres. Chief Little Shell insisted on 25 cents per acre because he knew that was what the government was paying other tribes, and he also wanted to retain more of the Turtle Mountain land. Senator Porter J. Macomber perpetrated a fraud to get the Macomber Agreement to the Senate. When Macomber refused to budge, Chief Little Shell walked out of further negotiations and refused to amend the original treaty. Finally, the Macomber Agreement was ratified. The federal officials coerced the Little Shell tribe to sign the treaty or risk starvation. The Little Shell tribe have been in a state of continual and consistent petition to the federal government for full recognition of their Aboriginal rights since the early 1920s. Hill 57 was the unofficial home for many of the impoverished Little Shell tribal members. Little Shell leader Joe DeSome tells the Billings Gazette,
"This country has been taken from us without our consent and without compensation. Our people have been jailed for hunting. Our horses have been rounded up and sold, for which we receive nothing, all of which is in violation of treaty stipulation. As the country settled, need for our services as scouts, hunters, and interpreters no longer existed, leaving us stranded and helpless among a people who do not understand us. There have been no provisions made for us to change our natural habitats and customs. Our children, in some places, are not wanted in public schools. We have asked little and received nothing, and we believe the best solution of our problem, both for ourselves and the whites, is a reservation with the same rights as other Indians."
The Department of the Interior opposed the bill of federal recognition, education, and rehabilitation for the tribe. The bill sought immediate aid for education and welfare services, most especially for the Hill 57 community. The bill was not passed. Hill 57 got electricity, but it wasn't due to the efforts of the federal government. Sister Providencia, Tolan, and local church members co-signed with community members to guarantee the service. The Indian Claims Commission had submitted to Congress a formula for distribution of the 1863 Old Crossing Treaty payments. It was retribution for the Little Shell tribe. Back payments would go to Turtle Mountain, Rocky Boy, and Minnesota Chippewa tribes. The Little Shell leadership learned that only recognized tribes would receive payments. The Little Shell tribe has been involved in the federal acknowledgement process since 1978. On July 14, 2000, 22 years after starting the process, Kevin Gover, the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, signed a proposed finding for federal acknowledgement of the Little Shell tribe of Chippewa Indians of Montana. The state of Montana acknowledges the Little Shell tribe with state recognition. Lee Fleming, Director of the Office of Federal Acknowledgement, issued a determination against the federal acknowledgement of the Little Shell tribe based on the complete record of available evidence, stating that the tribe did not meet all of the 7 mandatory criteria for acknowledgement. Another bill for federal recognition is brought in front of the Senate, but failed by 1 single vote. 2019, under the leadership of Chairman Gerald Gray Jr., the Little Shell Tribe of Chippewa Indians finally received federal recognition in December when the Restoration Act of 2019 was ratified and signed. 2020, since the federal recognition, the Little Shell Tribe has accomplished a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to buying back land on or around historic Hill 57, the Little Shell Tribe has worked on several healthcare, housing, education, and economic programs.
When I picked up the file, I just kind of looked at what your people had gone through and the resilience that you've shown, and I decided there wasn't going to be any magic that makes this happen. It was going to have to be an unwillingness to quit, an unwillingness to stop, and an absolute understanding that this day was inevitable. And I truly believe that as we fought through those days, and every year we get a little bit closer, and I'm really happy that we're here.
Growing up as a Little Shell member, we always felt like we were second-class citizens, that there were federally individuals who were members of federally recognized tribes that could, for instance, get Indian preference and go to work for the BIA. They could get scholarships to university. And as Little Shell members, we were never able to do that. We never qualified for that. So I think it's a great opportunity for Little Shell members going forward.
I was visiting with Chairman Gray this morning on getting the layout of the land per se and what he expected of me and et cetera. And his phone was just going off and people were tugging at him left and right. And I finally said, Chairman Gray, how do you do it? How do you manage all this stuff to get this thing put together? And he smiled and he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a handful of marbles. I said, what's that for? He says, well, every time I have to deal with an upset tribal member, I throw one away. Every time I have to deal with the upset something or this, that, I throw them away, he said, and when I finally lose all my marbles, I'll be a good chairman.
I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to thank our tribal council, Chairman Gray. I told Chairman Gray 8 years ago that, Chairman Gray, you are going to lead us into federal recognition, and by God, my prediction was correct. He's done it, and our council. And it was also with all the help of our Montana elected officials, all of our dignitaries, everybody that got behind us and pushed to make it happen. We couldn't have done it without them.
We are honored to have so many of you here who have come from around the state, from other states. I would like to thank all of our elders that have endured and held strong for so many years. We are honored to have such esteemed dignitaries join us and offer their comments in this hard-fought effort. Tonight, we commemorate an effort that no tribe should ever have to go through. But yet we celebrate the efforts of so many who have carried this torch for over 130 years. Many have passed that would have loved to see this historic day, and we honor them.
Chairman Gray gave me this can. It says Little Shell on it. And he said, Senator Daines, would you just keep that on your desk until we finally get tribal recognition? And I said, I'll do that. So every morning when I walk into my office, I'd have to look at this can that Chairman Gray gave me, reminding me that Congress kept kicking the can down the road. I told the chairman, we're going to get this done. And when we do, let's make a handshake. We're going to take this out somewhere, remember a prairie dog town or somewhere. We're going to take our hunting rifles out. We're going to shoot it. So I brought this can back from Washington, D.C. tonight. Chairman Gray, if you would come up for a moment. I'm going to present this can back to you because we finally got finished kicking the can down the road and got it done. And I look forward to setting up a time we'll take out. I've got a 300 Win Mag. I'm not sure what you want to shoot. We're going to shoot this can, Chairman. So,
when I drove up here to the hotel tonight, that parking lot was real full. And I walked into the hallway, and that hallway was even fuller. And I knew that tonight was going to be a great celebration. It was going to be a fun night. But more importantly, it is an historic night for all of us in Montana and all of you celebrating tonight. Thank you for being here.
There was two things that held our older people together that I always looked at is they had great faith in the Lord and their music, fiddle music.
I'm just overwhelmed by how many people are here. Standing room only.
Personally, I feel overwhelmed.
And it's incredible to see all the celebration, the happiness. Everyone is just in such a good mood around here.
Our chairman, Gerald Gray, has shared tokens of gratitude with our many key partners and allies who have made this historic event possible. We all know that this couldn't have been possible without Gerald's leadership to see decades and generations of efforts over the finish line. For us, the Little Shell, Gerald is a giant among leaders. As a small token of gratitude, we gift you, Gerald, with a blanket to be placed as a robe upon you by your father. This represents the embrace of the Creator throughout your life, blessing and protecting you for all of your days. We thank you, Gerald.
We also now have to think of our future generations and build a strong nation for them. A nation that provides jobs, education, elder, veteran services. A nation that is healthy and economically self-sufficient. A nation that we can all be proud of.
Our chief from the Turtle Mountain came here, for freedom, for sovereignty. He didn't, this battle with government and government telling us who we are and who we can be and so forth. That battle he began 127 years ago, and to be on that highway in that land, I just kept thinking that this is where he came. This is where my relatives came, my grandmas, my cookums and mushums came through this land, and here we are. And then today, we had a really, really special event, and I really want to thank my brother here. You're going to hear from him shortly here, Merle St. Clair. And for those of you who were at our pipe ceremony today, to me that was really the true essence of who we are as a Little Shell band, as a Little Shell people, is that pipe. And for Merle and his family to bring that pipe over here from Turtle Mountains here to your country, your beautiful country here, said a lot. And so I'm sitting there watching the pipe ceremony, and if you've ever been to a pipe ceremony, you smell the beauty of that ceremony, the tobacco and the sage and the cedar and so forth. And the songs are so beautiful. And I sat there taking it all in, breathing that, and I kept looking around in that cultural center, thinking that these are all my relatives. This is my blood. This is my DNA right here. This is me. And after that, a reporter came by and grabbed me and asked me for an interview. And she said, "Well, how does it feel to be a little shell?" I said, "Well, I've always been a little shell." And Brother Merle said that. He said, just because in history sometimes government has always told us who we are and who we're not, where we can live, where we can't live. Merle said, we're always little shell. We'll always be little shell.
My name is Merle St. Clair. I am Little Shell. I am Turtle Mountain. I am Anishinaabe. And so are you. So, of course, Anishinaabe, the word, it includes all of us. You know, so we are all together. And like I've always said, I've never forgotten about you, and the Turtle Mountain people haven't forgotten about you.
My name is Ace Short. I'm a staff member at Turtle Mountain Community College. I'm a little nervous to be up here today. Really excited. I'm also an enrolled Little Shell member, so I'm just like elated today. Absolutely elated. We've all been so patient, and I'm just like so proud to be here today.
While you have been fighting for federal recognition, you have been working hard to preserve your culture and your language. You have gone great lengths to teach your rich history and tell your stories to your children.
I heard repeatedly that federal recognition was identified as a top priority for the community, as it would bring resources for economic development, healthcare, and education. And it will give tribal leaders the authority to regulate their own affairs. Access to funds from Indian Affairs, Indian Education Funds, and the Indian Health Service are critical and palpable benefits that will break down long-standing barriers for Little Shell members.
We can all understand struggle. We can all understand being doubted by others. And we can all understand the need and the joy of being recognized for who we truly are. The benefits of federal recognition can be measured in many ways, but it's the implied acceptance and acknowledgement that your members share equally and proudly the heritage and history of all American Indians.
The struggle that these folks went through for so many years, and it just tells you, don't quit.
Well, the encouragement I have of the next generation is basically to utilize education as a standard and look into elements of nation building, of planning, of being able to work together and coordinate.
Yeah, I would just encourage people to learn more about the Little Shell culture and more about the language.
Don't quit. Never quit.
The most important thing is school. For all the kids to get free schooling.
I think our tribe is going to blossom. I think we have become accustomed to fighting really hard and to working really hard, and I think that's going to make us a very strong tribe going forward. So I have a lot of hope for our tribe and especially for our younger generation coming up.
It really is about the work that has gone on. It started in Turtle Mountains in his story about 35 years ago, knowing about the Little Shell and the Métis and the mixed bloods as well as the full bloods, but it all is the same. It's the Chippewa Cree and the Little Shell. You are together. You no longer are culled off at different times as you've moved through your history. So I want to thank you all very much. I do have a gift that Nicholas was saving, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he would have wanted it to come here to Chairman Gray. So have to have the Attorney General look aside. These are eagle feathers that he wanted to give to you on this time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now we can legally have eagle feathers.
In the middle of a blizzard, in the center of a snowstorm and a whiteout, the buffalo is the only animal who will stop and turn and walk head first into the storm. Now, I imagine that in 1892, when Chief Littleshell said no to the Federal Commission, and he said no to the 10-cent treaty because it was not worth the piece of parchment that it was written on, that he stopped, and he turned, and he walked head first into the storm. Now, little did he know that that storm was going to take 127 years to pass. But storms never last. And Chief Littleshell, you've done your spirit animal proud. And I'd also like to say to the Littleshell tribe of Chippewa Indians that today I believe your spirit animal and the Great Spirit are smiling down on you from above.
What else would you like people to know about this federal recognition of the Littleshell tribe?
Just to know that we are a people and we can be one. It just takes a little getting along together, because people together are strong, people alone are weak.
Way way
When a people lose something very valuable, they go back to find it, and that's part of their identity. These songs, the language, and all of these things are part of who we all are. All of those things you overcame to be a people, a recognized people, a sovereign nation within one of the greatest nations in the world.
Many great accomplishments occurred when we, the Littleshell tribe, after struggling over 127 years, gained back our federal recognition and legal status as a tribe. Some of those include performing traditional dances, owning and using eagle feathers, performing traditional ceremonies such as the pipe ceremony, traditional naming ceremonies, and etc. An extremely important and vital accomplishment is our ability to revive and perpetuate our traditional language, to teach Chippewa Ojibwe to our children and adults.
Regardless if there's the 49th parallel, my people, the Buffalo people, even Chief, they crossed that line without even knowing the grass was the same color. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to define ourselves through our language.
So from that came economic opportunity, came inclusion in education, inclusion in many realms that have significantly made the Littleshell, that gave ability to make a major leap forward in its tribal history.
To preserve the language and culture
You got to have the team, you got to have the resources. And TMCC is committed, I can say, to working with you people here in Great Falls and the surrounding community.
History is very important to know how to solve a problem. One of those problems is this assimilation thing I've been talking about. That was a mistake made by our government. We could have been more powerful in this nation if we were accepted in the same level as the Europeans now.
Our ways of knowing, our traditional ways of knowing, are vital to our survival. And so I think our native languages are really tied to the culture.
It's just so important to say, well, what are we trying to preserve? You know, there's the language is part of the culture. Actually, language is culture and culture is language. Without both of them, you just don't go anywhere. And you're going to preserve your legends, your history, your stories, your songs, your music, all through the language, because through this language, and where you're talking about it being a distinct language of a distinct group, then you know all its usages.